Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, friends. We have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry about the minute delay, but thank you for everyone for joining us today. So glad that you could be here. We're going to go ahead and get started with the meeting so that we can get you out of here as quickly as you can. I know some of us have other events and happenings later today. The first thing that we will do is approve the TPB agenda for November 14th, 2023. I would entertain a motion to approve. Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the TPP minutes for October 10th, 2023. I was not here, so I will be abstaining, but I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Thank you, Dan. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Is there anyone opposed?
Not opposed, but I'll abstain because I wouldn't hear you.
I will also be abstaining because I wasn't here. Rodney will also be abstaining. All right. Seeing none opposition, the motion does pass. Item C is the director's report. Chad Wawas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the Transportation Policy Body. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Really reminding of wow. One of the things that staff is proud is your leadership. That itself is wow. One of the reasons is how going beyond one's jurisdictions and serving everyone beyond this one step beyond is an amazing, rewarding perspective that how the next step is again the region and the state, and then the state and the nation. That one step can help us connect the larger picture and how the agency is, serving the larger good of the public, and then the rewards are reaped by individuals. It's really every moment this meeting happens, it's always a wow. Just to support our chair on this great meeting, and we always are thankful for your leadership. So we have some reports to report to you. Starting with the first item, which is innovations and presentations. There's a list of YouTubes that were compiled that occurred all this year. And some of those were like, drone presentations and several presentations this year. So that's in the packet, just an update on that. The second item is the call for projects. There is a long-range transportation plan that's being developed. Staff is working to compile the priorities of jurisdictions, the projects, and the call for projects went. Nick, Peter, myself, and Ashley was working before. We were all working and communicating with jurisdictions. We had a workshop for jurisdictions explaining how, the process and all. All this is to line up to assist the project selection committee. Compiling all this list and helping so that project selection committee can make decisions on that. So we have Peter to talk about the call for projects. Let me request Peter.
Good afternoon. So it is a combined call for projects for the MTP and TIP for both the MTP 2050 due by June of 2025 and the 2025 to 2028 TIP due by August of 2024. So the reasons for combining the call for projects, we want to save our project sponsors time by requiring only one application instead of two for the different transportation improvement plan and our long range plan. And it'll also help ensure that they are consistent between both our MTP and our TIP. The call for projects, it's open from September 15th and closes on January 5th of next year. The application packet, cost estimation model, and the recording of the workshop on November 8th can all be downloaded from the links on the slide. Any questions for me on the call for projects?
All right. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thanks, ma'am. The next item is automatic bike pit counters that Dora has a short report on that as well. Dora, may I request?
Thank you. I'm Dora Gaio, Transportation Planner here at WAMPO. Just a little update. So every year, WAMPO does automatic manual bike ped counts. And moving forward, we kind of want to get some automatic bike ped counters so we can count all year long. So we're currently developing the RFP. It's in the process or close to finishing, hopefully. And once we will issue the RFP and then we'll bring it out to you guys so you guys can review it.
I just want to make a comment. I've done the bike ped counts for over a decade, so I'm glad to see it automated. We had our pre-WAMPO meeting yesterday for the city of Wichita, and we had lots of questions that we proposed to Chad. So just where they'd be located, what's the most effective use? Are they going to be solar? Are they going to be electric? If they're electric, that limits where they can be placed. So it was really a robust conversation, but I'm just glad to see we're moving in this direction so we don't have to use so much people power and we can use more technology. So good on you, Dora.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and our RFP is more looking into, we're getting video cameras that will do the counts for us, and that they have a dashboard and all that. So, and we are working with the jurisdictions that are interested, and we're in the works of getting those fine line agreements.
So
Thank
just
you.
a quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Are you intending that these be up and running year round?
Yes. So right now, currently some of the cameras are movable. So we're kind of going to do a pilot program the first year, and then depending how those go, then we'll determine whether purchasing more. If the jurisdictions want to also want to purchase more, then we'll look into that as well. But yes, from my understanding, some of the discussions we're having, depending how many we can buy, we only have 100,000 in our UPWP. So depending how many we can buy with the local match, we will determine those locations based on our previous years of manual counts, our top 10 locations, or any specific locations that the jurisdictions specifically want to get counted, and then we can test those for a couple weeks and then we can move them around.
I'm just concerned about having cameras up year round like that. That doesn't seem like an appropriate thing to do.
Well, they don't capture any like specific details. It'll just identify if it's a pedestrian or bicycle rider or somebody on a scooter or skateboard. They could also determine other traffic modes as well. Some of these companies can.
Yeah, that's the concern. It's a Fourth Amendment surveillance issue that I'm concerned about.
Okay, we'll look into it. And we'll see how interfere with those amendments.
And that's a great question. We talked a little bit about that. Well, I'm excited about the technology and not just doing it 3 or 4 weekends a year. And then if you have rain or you have, unpredictable, then it skews the data. So I like the part of it this would fix that, but we also had concerns about the same thing. We're even with the city, with our flock system, with police, we have lots of people who have concerns. So how do we utilize and capitalize on technology, but making sure that we're doing it in a safe way? And one of the things we talked about is just making sure that the company that is selected has a really robust training protocol for staff, for us. So I'm sure I'm looking forward to more to come, and that might be part of the RFP even is, the protection of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that information. Just an FYI, we told Flock they could not put their devices in our city.
Thanks, Dora. Thanks, madam.
Thank you.
The next item we have is the bi-monthly TIP projects update. Nick, Peter, and myself, we have a table that this table was so small in the packet, so we printed 11 by 17 and then had this table 11 by 17 page at your near your place. It's highlighted in yellow. Some of these projects, Peter is here to talk about this. This is basically a status update on, when the anticipated project lead date is, when the obligation date, and when the anticipation completion date is. The last 4 columns are, the timeline, and then some of the columns have how much the programmed cost of the project. So I'll let Peter explain those. Peter.
Thank you, Chad. I think Chad really said basically the important parts there. So as part of our tip policy, every 2 months, we have these progress reports for projects that are programmed to receive WAMPO sub-allocated federal funding in the current fiscal year, or that have received it in the past but are not yet finished. There's currently 8 of those projects, and as Chad was describing there, those last 4 columns can tell you just the obligation dates and the let dates and where they are in that process. I have them up on the screen, but please don't squint your eyes trying to read that.
And one of the things is, this also speaks about your leadership and how we seek your approvals. There are a lot of long-range transportation plan documents and the list of projects, but what does it mean in a particular year? This also gives a sample of, what happens in 1 year, 2024. And then Peter also has a next slide that is beyond the suballocated projects. These suballocated projects approximately sum up to somewhere between, like 10 or 12 million per year. But Peter has a other slide, which is not WAMPO area, but non-suballocated areas, some of the projects that KDOT is sponsoring, it's some of the Wichita transit and, so on. Just an update on the committed projects. Anything else, Peter?
No, I just sometimes I get a little tunnel vision on our suballocated funding program. It's always good to keep it in perspective with the larger tip projects that it's a part of. But
Thank you, Peter. The next item is Safe Routes to School Planning Assistance. This program, we had a comment from our Commissioner Dennis, so we are following up on the advice of Commissioner Dennis to have meetings in the future, primarily to determine, we had some understanding of how many school districts are participating in this, how many jurisdictions are participating. But since Commissioner Dennis mentioned that we got to look at everyone, all school districts in the region are included. So we are planning on having some meetings with jurisdictions. So we have a clear path and a robust and a solid path forward. So we still are determining through some of the meetings that will be scheduled soon.
That good? Thank you, Chad. I do want to take a point of privilege and go back to the first slide of the innovation presentation summary. When Chairman Dennis, Commissioner Dennis, sorry, it's a bad habit, was chair of WAMPO and did such a fantastic job. He recommended that once a month at WAMPO TPP, we had a presentation from a community who was doing something in economic development. And then I can't remember the other year. This year we tried for projects with innovation and didn't have quite as much success. And so the executive team will definitely be looking to continue that because I think it's a great way to get more information sharing and networking. So if you have any great ideas of what you think the theme should be for 2024, certainly open for suggestions. We've done economic impact. I can't remember what the other ones were.
The cities came in.
Regional significance. Thank you. So if you have any other thoughts, again, I'd love to hear from anyone who might give us some suggestions so that we can start getting ready for 2024 because it's almost here. All right, next consent agenda, we have Danny to talk about video creation services contract.
Hello, everyone. I don't see my notes up here. That's okay. I'm going to talk to you about our consent agenda today for the extension of the Method Productions cost comparison. So Method Productions proposed an extended agreement for 2024 with a few minor changes from 2023. The original contract is going to expire on December 31st of this year. And so this is why we're looking at an extension. There are a few minor changes, most notably of the number of videos and then the amount or the length of time that those videos are recorded. And then this is funded and programmed into the proposed 2024 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPW plea, under subtask 2.6 on consultant services and video creation services. Let's see. Okay, we recommend approving the 2024 video creation services contract with Method Productions as presented. Your options are to approve the 2024 video creation services contract with Method Productions as presented, not approve the 2024 video creation services contract with Method Productions, or approve the 2024 video creation services contract with Method Productions with specific changes.
Any questions for Danny?
Madam Chair, this is Allison Smith at KDOT, and I have a question. Danny, when did you send this to KDOT for review?
I'm not sure. Chad, do you know the answer to that one?
We probably missed that, Allison. It was an extension of the timeline. At some point, we only had until December 2023. So since the work is anticipated to go beyond, we're happy to have you review and then have this approved in December. We can do that.
It needs to come to KDOT for review.
Okay, we're happy to do that, Allison. And then
Okay, thank you.
maybe request for tabling so we can have the coordination.
Kelly, do we have to make a motion to table it, or can we just? Okay, I'll just go ahead and make a motion that we table this item until the December TPP meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Awesome, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion does pass. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll get it taken care of. We'll work with staff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Danny. So next we have public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wants to have 3 minutes of fame and tell us what you're thinking? Not today, Jane? Okay, well, thank you. We'll see you next month. Next on the agenda, the moment you've all been waiting for, the exciting opportunity to be part of the WAMPO executive team. Troy Tabor, who served not only WAMPO as TAC chair so well and served his community as a council member in Andover, and then as vice chair, did not want to seek re-election. And so that means that his time with us on WAMPO is gone. And so we are seeking a vice chair. This will be until March, when we have the elections for the chair and the vice chair again. So we're looking for someone, kind of a temporary position. Just to let you know, meet with executive committee once a month, have conversations with me when I need to bounce ideas off someone, attend to these meetings, and then TAC if possible. So it's a pretty limited time commitment. Troy has had to fill in for me one time as chair, but I think that was a great opportunity for you all to not have to listen to me for once. So what we're going to do today then is see if anyone is interested in nominating or self-nominating for the vice chair to continue to fulfill the term through the end of February, and then we'll vote in our March meeting. Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it very much. There's one individual that kind of taught me most of what I needed to know. I served with him on the executive committee for a number of years. I've served with him when he was the chair in the past, and as he was the vice chair. So I think with this interim, we need someone with that type of experience, and I nominate Dan Wojciak.
Dan, are you willing to accept the nomination? Awesome. Any other nominations? Okay, with that, we will call the vote. Do we need to have a formal vote or just aye? Yeah. Oh, sorry. So that was, I'm so sorry. Pardon me. It's only Tuesday. Is there a second? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you, Kelly. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Congratulations, Dan. Now you have something to put on your resume, right? I knew that's what you were looking for. No, you will be great, and we appreciate your willing to step up and serve. And then with this, kind of a few things have come to light. So the executive committee will be looking at the bylaws again and just a little bit about this process and seeing if we can think about succession planning maybe in a little different way. So more to come on that. Next, for our next action item is the 2024 Unified Planning Work Plan, and we have Chad and Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This time we had a excellent collaboration with KDOT and Federal Highway Administration on this document. We had been working on this document since June, I think. Ashley and I had been coordinating with Federal Highway Administration. KDOT team members like Allison had been great help in mainly you have seen the products and the staff working on various projects every year. Primarily documenting all those planning products and the tasks and the corresponding budget from Federal Highway Administration. This budget is also called as Consolidated Planning Grant. And every year, Unified Planning Work Program is approved by you, and then staff continues the work. So it's the same that seeking your approval. This document is not new to you. Except Peter is going to talk about some of the tasks that were ongoing, that is going to be overflowing into 2024, and some of the new initiatives Peter and I are going to report to you today. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, so I got several slides here. The UPWP is subdivided into tasks, and those are, of course, subdivided into subtasks. We work on this every summer and try to get it to a fine mirror polish. There's quite a few items in here. You do have at your table the UPWP booklet there if you'd like to take a deeper look, but I'm just going to go through here and we'll kind of give you a broad overview of just the different line items that we have for our UPWP. So a lot of our line items, for one, we have a lot of our management operational items, and you can see here before you. We do have our list of different consultant services for many different projects that our consultants are assisting us. You can see some of those, the MTP 2050 Planning Assistant, our Economic Development Study, Active Transportation Plan, Regional Transit Implementation Plan, which we'll be talking about at different meetings and giving you updates on those here. We have our total budget here that you can see comes to just over $2 million for the different subtasks and different things that we're working on. And just a list of the different highlights, continuing to develop the 2050 Metropolitan Plan, administering the Transportation Improvement Program, completing the fiscally constrained Regional Transit Implementation Plan, implementing our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, and developing ICT Safe, our Regional Transportation Coalition, updating the Economic Development Report, developing the Regional Active Transportation Plan, our Safe Routes to School planning, and updating the Intelligent Transportation Systems Architecture. So we got everything in the kitchen sink in there, and I think it will make for a very good UPWP for the coming year.
Just to add to that, Peter, there's one other project that's not on the list. That's a collaboration between Sedgwick County, WAMPO, KDOT, and City of Wichita and Derby. That's a K-15 corridor management study. This UPWP commits $50,000 towards that project, and the Sedgwick County also committed $50,000. City of Wichita $10,000, and Derby $10,000, and some more than $350,000 from KDOT. So that's total about $499,000. That project, that's K-15 corridor. That's another example of among other projects that are in the UPWP as well. That completes. Thanks, Peter.
We presented this to TAC. They recommended approval of the 2024 UPWP as presented. So I have your action items here before you. You can approve as presented, not approve, or approve with any changes that you recommend.
Any questions for Peter or for Chad? You did such a good job. We don't have any questions. With that, I would entertain a motion. Thank you, new vice chair. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Fantastic. The motion does pass. Next is action item C. We have urban area boundaries, and Peter's gonna take it away again.
Hey. So some background on our urban area boundary that we've been building through for the past couple of meetings here. So every MPO's metropolitan planning area must contain an urban area boundary distinguishing the urban from the rural areas. For our suballocated funding program, this is important because our surface transportation block grant funds can be used on urban minor collectors within the urban area boundary, but not on rural minor collectors outside the urban area boundary. Additionally, non-suballocated transportation alternative funds from KDOT can be used outside the urban area boundary, but not inside. Additionally, the UAB must fully contain the census urban boundary. So I'm introducing another boundary to keep in your head here, which is established after each decennial US Census. So after the new census urban areas are established, MPOs and their state DOTs must agree on a single urban area boundary to submit to the Federal Highway Administration. If we do not decide on a UAB together, the UAB defaults to being the same as the census urban area boundary that was determined by the decennial census. So our current UAB was adopted following the 2010 census and it was last updated in 2015. The 2020 Wichita census urban area, as determined by the decennial census, is entirely within the WAMPO MPA. So it's within WAMPO, meaning the MPA does not need to be changed or extended. But it does extend beyond our old urban area boundary in a few locations, meaning that the current UAB without alteration is not an option. So WAMPO staff have drafted proposed new UAB with feedback from both KDOT staff, TAC, and TPP. And how we developed this, we overlaid the current urban area boundary and the 2020 census urban area. And then we followed federal guidance that said UAB should contain entire municipalities overlaid. So we overlaid city limits of 12 municipalities overlapping the current urban area boundary or census urban area. I have a picture at the end of this so we could all look at it together. Then we filled in holes, i.e. the reverse enclaves where that resulted from this shape, connected the non-contiguous but nearby parts. UABs are required to be one contiguous shape. And UABs need to follow physical features that one can discern in the field. So you would extend the shape farther outward in some locations to meet up to those kind of physical features that you could identify by yourself if you were just out in the open. And then where the UAB follows a roadway, we counted the roadway as inside the urban area boundary. And then, of course, made sure that the UAB is entirely within the WAMPO region as required by federal law. And then following the September 25th, 2023 TAC meeting and October 10th TPP meeting, we made adjustments as requested by our different committee members. And with those adjustments and from our starting point with the census urban area boundary, I have the map here before you. Any questions on the UAB before I move on to the action items?
Any questions for Peter? I'd almost give anyone $1 if they could explain that. But what I'm going to make a statement, Peter. You want to try it? You want to bet? So we talked about this again a little bit after our pre-WAMPO meeting, and my interpretation, and will you correct me if I'm wrong, okay, always, but after the census, the city and the county and other municipalities went through redistricting, and now that you have all of our redistricting, now we're just kind of making sure that everybody is following along the same boundaries, and it's just kind of updating. Is that correct, based on census data?
It's based on the decennial census data is where we get that census urban area. And then we update it from the old urban area boundary that we had back from 2010.
So one question I did have, are there any significant changes or anything that you think is worth highlighting? Because to me, the map is good, but it doesn't really, tell me a bunch more, but can you just kind of highlight what you think would be the most important thing for us to know as a takeaway?
I'll let Nick enlighten us because he worked very hard on the development of this one.
Thank you, Peter. On this map, it may be a little hard to see the legend, but this red hatching represents the proposed new urban area boundary. The dark blue is the old one, and the light blue is the census urban area that is required to be entirely contained within it. As you can see, the most noteworthy change is a change that was made at the request of PPB members at the last meeting to include land around Rose Hill and the land between Rose Hill and the rest of the region here. So that is the largest expansion of it included here. And then also we took it out to include the full incorporated areas of the cities that are included, with the exceptions of 2 small enclaves out here. So, as an example, it has all of Mays and all of Valley Center, including a little bit of land that they expect to annex in the near future. And this new census urban area is based on what the Census Bureau deemed to be urban for the region based off of the new census data. And we had to make sure to include all of that. And as for the implications of this, the main thing is that it affects the functional classification of roadways, including the distinction between urban minor collector and rural minor collector. So surface transportation block grant funds can be used on urban minor collectors, but not on rural minor collectors. And so that is a significant difference in funding eligibility based on in or out of the UAB. Any more questions?
I don't. That was very helpful, Nate. Thank you. That really.
I got one.
Please.
So the inclusion of the expansion on the southeast there versus the southwest down by Clearwater, what would be the implication for us by not being in here from a funding perspective, and what would be the process to be in there?
All right. Well, first, first of all, regarding the funding implications, although there may be implications for other funding programs, but the 2 I am aware of are Surface Transportation Block Grant and Transportation Alternatives Funds. Now, for the Surface Transportation Block Grant, some roads that are designated minor collectors can receive Surface Transportation Block Grant funds if they are in the urban area boundary. Now, to be clear, if it's a major collector or an arterial, then it can get it even if it is outside the urban area boundary. But if it is specifically a minor collector, then if it is outside the UAB, then it cannot get surface transportation block grant funding. So that is the major implication. And then it's also an implication for KDOT distributed transportation alternatives funds for bike and ped projects, which going a bit in the opposite direction, can be used outside of the UAB, but not inside of it. Inside of the UAB, they can only use the WAMPO sub-allocated transportation alternatives funds, but those can also be used outside of the UAB. That's the implication. As for the process, well, first of all, there's the process that we've been going through here and gathering input from the TAC and TPB, and we would have to coordinate with the KDOT staff to make sure that that land to the southwest is, yes, you had a question? No, okay, no, make sure that land to the southwest would, one, qualify as urban enough, both either in the present or in the anticipated near future, say 5 to 10 years. And then we need to coordinate with that, and then it would still need to come back to this body again. Now, last time we had a new urban area boundary a decade ago, there were changes to it after the initial adoption. So that is something that could be brought back to this body again. And on that note, I would point out that KDOT has requested that MPOs submit to them a proposed urban area boundary by the end of this month, so that they can get something to the Federal Highway Administration by December 29th to get that officially adopted. Because if they don't have something at FHWA for us by then the border defaults to being identical to the census urban area. This blue one, which actually represents a contraction of the UAB compared to the current one. So there's a couple ways to do this. We could try to, oh, sorry, I'm presuming now, so is that to address the questions you had?
I'm not proposing that we would not meet that deadline. I think it would be a question I would ask is the process in which to modify it after it's been submitted. Because I think, you know, with ARC 95 and some of the other work going down here, this is within 10 years where that is going to have to be recognized as such. And as these things get put in place are much more difficult, but I will not make any objection to approval. I just want to make sure, and I'll follow up starting tomorrow to understand how to get this modified.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I really do agree with Mayor Usrich, because I don't understand this large area that's been incorporated into this. It does pick up Rose Hill, but it picks up a whole lot of open area that's not very urban whatsoever. And then we forget about things like Colwich, down to Clearwater, over to Garden Plain, which are just as sparse in between. But we discount those areas. So I've just got questions on how that this was ever generated to pick up this large southeast quadrant and forget some of the other areas that are important in our area for growth.
So Peter, can you advance to the next slide where it gives us our recommendations? We can approve today. Can you go back a slide? Thank you. So if we approve today, then it would have to be submitted to KDOT by December 1. And then by the 29th is the deadline for KDOT to submit final. So Nate, Peter, Chad, what if, and I guess for Mayor and for Commissioner, are you okay with approving today as long as maybe we include in the motion what you want staff to do?
Yeah, we're moving up against the deadline that we can't move. And I have no problem with approving it, but I would like to come back to this because I don't understand. I appreciate that Rose Hill is in this. I don't have a problem with that. It's all that area in between that we added that is not very urban. And then we forgot about other areas of the county that really are reflective of the same as Rose Hill, but we discounted those.
So would you be willing to make a motion to approve, but include what you would like staff to do and by when, so that we leave here with clear action items for everyone?
Certainly, I move that we approve this, but I asked the staff to go back and see if there are other areas of the county that we ought to include in the urban area and bring it back at a future date for a possible update to this urban area.
Do you have a date of when you'd like that to happen?
I don't want to push pressure on the staff. As long as they bring it back within the next quarter, I'd be happy.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is your motion would be to approve with the recommendation that staff by the end of first quarter of 2024 bring back additional information.
So moved.
Thank you very much. We got there. Yay. All those in favor say aye. Is there anyone opposed? Thank you very much. The motion does pass. Next, we go to our discussion and updates, and we have two items. The first is the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, and this is Danny, Peter, Chad, and then also we have Aaron joining us virtually.
Hello again. So I'm going to talk to you about the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. In the second half of 2022, WAMPO staff began investigating development of their own Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, or CSAP. It was noted that in addition to the benefits of having a single safety action plan for the entire region, the adoption of such a plan makes WAMPO eligible for certain safety grants, most notably a Safe Streets and Roads for All implementation grant. This grant is used to address major road infrastructure safety issues as identified in the CSAP. In the federal fiscal year of 2023, the US DOT expected the minimum award to be $2.5 million and the maximum award to be $25 million. So a contract with consultants BNN, Transsystems, and Vireo was signed in December of 2022 for the development of a plan. To engage with the public, a public survey was administered asking about behaviors of different road users, vulnerable road user protection, enforcement, equity, and top investment priorities. Also, the Safety and Health Committee, which was then renamed ICT SAFE, held a public open house, and the results of that meeting were included in the plan as well. A group of transportation safety professionals in the WAMPO region established the Transportation Safety Technical Advisors, or the TSTA. The committee formed to offer guidance and recommendations to the plan's development. They met 3 times in 2023 and uncovered 3 critical areas of emphasis for crash prevention and study that we'll talk about on the next slide. So the plan itself lists, in Appendix B, it lists the TSTA's accomplishments. And with the results of this state of practice study, the TSTA evaluated the current state of 40 different safety practice benchmarks of agencies in the region. They identified 3 major areas of emphasis, those being intersections of concern, vulnerable road users, and speed-related crashes. They also evaluated and prioritized safety countermeasures from a list of 73 different interventions that were found in other local and regional planning documents. And they completed a walking audit of several intersections of high concern and further discussed the selection of safety interventions for the CSAP with input from FHWA's list of proven safety countermeasures. So then next we'll discuss the existing conditions according to the data that was collected. As part of the CSAP, the study team conducted a review of crashes in the WAMPO area. To achieve a large sample size for meaningful conclusions to be obtained, a 10-year review plus partial data for 2022 was examined. And this section of the plan has 8 listed tables and 26 figures. So I'd like to share with you a couple of examples of what can be found. This graph shows the number of crashes that happen for each related cause, as well as distributing the severity of those crashes. So for example, the highest number of crashes were intersection related. And as you can see, based on the colors of the bar, that a majority of them resulted in property damage only. That's what PDO stands for, followed by injury crashes. Across all categories, it's difficult to examine the serious injury and fatal crashes due to the scale. So this graph shows only the serious injury and fatal crashes. It's important to note that many of these categories on this graph, such as distracted driver related, unrestrained occupant related, and alcohol or drug related, all fall under the umbrella of behavioral factors. And then here's a heat map that shows the areas where vehicle to vehicle collisions resulting in fatalities or injuries occur most often. The area with the most instances is enlarged at the top right. Here's another heat map that shows areas where most pedestrian and bicycle crashes occur, the hotspot being mostly in downtown Wichita. And again, the area with the most instances is enlarged at the top right. And then this map shows the top vulnerable road user crash locations. The darker the shade of blue on this map, the more vulnerable road user crashes occur in that location. So in the top right here, you can see the zoomed in section again of downtown Wichita, which contains most of the areas of concern. And then this will bring us to strategies and implementation. The implementation section identifies specific strategies to reduce severe crashes for the selected emphasis areas as identified by the TSTA. And again, those emphasis areas are vulnerable road users, intersection related crashes, and speed related crashes. The planning strategies are further organized by the safe system approach that they address. And then this is an example of what that looks like in the plan. Each lists the strategy, the outcome, the responsible party or parties, the time frame, and the emphasis area or areas that they are addressed. And there are 18 total strategies listed. And then the countermeasures shown here are proven to be effective countermeasures by the Federal Highway Administration. And these were analyzed by the TSTA during the development of the CSAP. And then next, I will turn it over to Peter to talk about Safe Streets and Roads for All.
So for our next steps, we're going to, of course, submit the CSAP plan for TAC recommendation on the 27th and for TPP approval on December 12th. Assuming CSAP approval by TPP, we will develop an application with our consultants BNN for a 2024 SS4A implementation grant, which will include a selection of a project or projects that are based on the CSAP goals and public input received during the plan development, supported by a demonstrated need for safety interventions as revealed by the existing conditions data that was existing conditions report that was created in the CSAP, and then is also consistent with at least one or more of the strategies in the implementation plan as described in the CSAP. As a note, these SS4A implementation grants are highly competitive. And if we have any questions, I have Erin Gushin who's going to talk about that more. But right before I bring this over to her, I just want to give you an update on this contract with BNN. Our timeline changed when we come to you in TPP on December 12th. We will be talking about a consent item for extending the contract with BNN to help us write this grant proposal. There is no change in the budget. That's all there. It would just be extending the contract into next year with the budget that's already been approved. And I'll let Erin tell us about the implementation grant.
Welcome, Erin.
Hi, are you all able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I was just going to provide a little bit more information and kind of build off of what Peter was saying. Really just emphasizing the implementation grants are very competitive. We have some data from the last round where 37 out of 234 projects received funding, so about 16%. We believe that the next rounds will be just as, if not more competitive, as more and more cities and regions are completing their SS4A eligible plans like we are here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the types of projects that have done well, that have, kind of what some of the trends are and the types of projects that have been getting funded, so that we can start to frame that in our minds as we move forward from adopting the CSAP into really nailing down what we're going to prioritize and focus on in the implementation grant application. So these are rather large projects. Minimum award, just over 2 million. Maximum award was 30 million, and then the average award was 16 million. All of the awarded projects were scored very high. They reached that highly recommended scoring. So any sort of implementation grant application that merely reached recommended status, unfortunately, did not end up getting funded. So one of the things that I wanted to note was that of the types of projects I mentioned, there were 37 that were funded. of those 37, 22 were system-based. So they were spread out over a wider geographic area. Sometimes they focused on a particular neighborhood, or sometimes even larger than that. The remaining 15 projects were corridor-based. So none of the awarded implementation grants focused on a single location, a single intersection. Now, when I do say they were system-based, though, we do have to make sure that that we have a good story for why we're tying these specific locations together. If we were going to be looking at intersection improvements at various locations around the WAMPO region, we would have to make the strong case for why this classifies as a single project. So and that's something that we can continue to work with you all on as we start developing the grant application. I think those are the main things I wanted to highlight for right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Aaron? I did note in the staff report that it said that we only had 3 public comments during it looks like a 30-day period. So wish we would have gotten a little bit more community, but I know it's hard to reach beyond the noise of everything else going on, and especially during the busy fall time. But any questions for Aaron or for WAMPO staff?
I was going to note too, and I'm sorry I can't see you all there, so if someone was about to speak, please stop me. I was just going to note that we only received 3 public comments on the draft plan, but we did get a pretty decent turnout at the public open house that we hosted, or that Walk Bike Wichita hosted along with us. So there are additional public comments that are documented in the appendix to the plan. And we also did a survey early on in the plan that we got a lot of input from the public on that. So I agree, it would have been great to get a little more feedback on the draft plan itself, but we got public input at multiple points during the development process.
Fantastic. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
Anything else? Peter, Aaron? All right. Thank you for the update, Chad.
Sorry, Madam Chair. We wanted to update you that, this is going to the TAC for the next TAC meeting for approval of the plan, and then staff and consulting firm team will present to you seeking your approval on the plan. So just want to share the timeline on this.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Peter, you're next on the agenda again with the employment sectors.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. Just an overview for you guys. Peter and I have, we were working on this economic development study with the Wichita State University and the JUO. There are several reports that we printed and have it on your table. So these are in line with the already developed economic strategies for the region. Many of you in the past several years had been working with Greater Wichita Regional Partnership with Andrew Name and all. So we made sure that this study is in line with those sectors. And we wanted to make sure this study gets more updated data on the number of employers and what are the top employers in our region and so on. So there are a couple of reports that Peter and I were wanting to present to you, series of these sectors. Last meeting we had aerospace sector, Peter and I have presented, and now this meeting it is advanced manufacturing. So just want to give an overview and a context to you. Peter is going to dive deeper and talk about advanced manufacturing today. Peter, thank you.
So at the end of this analysis, this economic analysis, all of these reports, including the one that's printed in before you, they'll be included into our long-range transportation planning to give it some greater economic context. And so you can kind of see the 7 different sectors here and some of the largest employers in there. We highlighted the advanced manufacturing in blue there. So our largest employer there would be Coleman Co. at about 1,300 people at one location. So advanced manufacturing, WAMPO, as defined by the Greater Wichita Partnership, encompasses a diverse range of industries, including machinery production, metal fabrication, and plastics and composite manufacturing. WAMPO's advanced manufacturing sector demonstrates resilience and modest growth and remains competitive against other comparable metropolitan areas. Through this presentation, we're going to try to answer the following questions. Who are the key players today? Where is the industry as a whole right now? What key factors will affect the future of the industry? So from the information that we were able to find, here are the top 10 employers for advanced manufacturing within WAMPO. So we have Coleman at the top, Hustler Turf 700, which is actually up around Newton. But speaking with our different consultants there, untangling all of these different businesses and things just squarely in WAMPO doesn't necessarily give you the whole picture, because we all share employers and commuter flows and utilize the highway system to create one kind of economic sector. So I have a map of the advanced manufacturing facilities across the WAMPO region, and a little bit further north there's 226 different employment locations that were evaluated during the study. Some of the largest ones I have here labeled on the screen, but you can kind of see I wanted to extend it just a little bit further because some of our larger advanced manufacturer locations are actually outside of the WAMPO region, but they do contribute to the economics of the region as a whole. And I wanted to look just above here, all of these advanced manufacturing places here around Newton, they all are greater than at least 30 employees at each one of these locations. And it represented kind of an outlying hub that I honestly didn't realize was there until I looked at this report and looked at this data. But you can see we're quite well connected to them via I-135. This is kind of centered in on the center of Wichita, which is where most of these, the different labels that are highlighted with the yellow border, those are some of our largest manufacturers. You can see Coleman Co., Great Plains, CNH Wichita. But quite a few different locations that I was quite ignorant of before I started this. To kind of describe where we are now, our advanced manufacturing employment in this sector has been pretty steady over the study area or study time. So from 2015 to 2021, hovering right around 9,000 employees, not as impacted by the pandemic as many other industries were, which was good to see there. This is how we compare to other metropolitan areas. Again, we're not the largest. You can see Elkhart, Goshen, according to the Center for Economic Development and Business Research, the advanced manufacturing industry, they produce a ton of RV and RV equipment, and they have extended their employment in that sector considerably over the pandemic, but they represent quite an outlier in that region. And then we wanted to look at their median wages. And you can see they've been growing steadily, and it was quite encouraging to see that, but we opted to make sure we put an inflation line in there. And that is what's represented by that gold line. So I suppose it's a good thing they didn't lose against inflation, but this industry seems to be just keeping pace. And then finally, looking towards the future of advanced manufacturing, they in these economic reports at the end of them, you'll see this section on each sector, but they talk about the different things that might affect the future. So threats of new entrants, quite low. Advanced manufacturing, you have to build some sort of fabrication plant, so it has high capital requirements. It has several issues with compliance with government regulations, which is also difficult for entrepreneurs to break into. And then also involves some proprietary technology. Specifically mentioned in the report was Coleman, which has proprietary technology in designing and manufacturing outdoor equipment. Threat of substitution is low. Manufacturing, these advanced manufacturers with their metal fabrication and different products and stuff, there isn't somebody readily in the market to take their place. So they don't have a huge threat of substitution. The bargaining power of buyers and suppliers, they listed as moderate, which you'll see in many different industries. And to give you an example of what they were kind of going after, if you consider yourself purchasing something at Walmart, there are tons of buyers, one supplier. You do not bargain when you go into a retail store. They set the price. For the advanced manufacturers, even though there's so many different locations and entities in this, often as a buyer, there's only a few that are going to supply the components you need. Say you're a small aerospace manufacturing part that's in the middle of this supply chain, and advanced manufacturers are at the bottom. If you need so many widgets of a certain kind, there's usually only maybe 3 or 4 people that can supply it. So often they can bargain with each other on the amount, for what cost, and how long of a contract. So it kind of goes back and forth between both suppliers and buyers. And then finally, for that same reason, they put rivalry amongst existing firms can be quite high, because sometimes there isn't that many other people in town to provide that need. And then one special note that the Center for Economic Development and Business Research put in this report was that Wichita has quite a large supply of highly skilled workforce in this area. It could be just related to our legacy aircraft manufacturers, but we have a lot of machinists and different machining fabrication in our WAMPO region. But they didn't put that in many of the other reports, so I thought I would mention it here. Any questions for me on advanced manufacturing and WAMPO?
Questions for staff? I just want to make a comment. I think this is fantastic. And I just stole an extra copy because I want to give it to our EcoDevo team. It is on the website. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then also, I'm a data junkie. I love this. How are we going to share this information? I mean, I think this tells a story. I think this provides opportunity. I think it could help us to, share with our Greater Wichita Partnership team members, but it's great to have the data and to have it presented in such a unique way, but what are we going to do with it to make it effective?
That's a great question, Madam Chair. One of the things that staff and federal requirement is to develop a travel demand model forecasting. For that purposes, the data on demographics and employment is required. So as part of requirement, we are doing this, but at the same time, we are making sure this is in conjunction and consistent with the strategies that were already developed in the region. That's one. And the second reason is all of this will help in the project selection process when project selection committee comes together, understanding that, these are the new employers now. These are the roadways that are near these employers. These are the changes that occurred in the recent past. So these updates will help selection process of the transportation projects and funding as well. So in general, as a planning process, staff is supposed to be working on these updates on data periodically. So these are the reasons, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, but I'm just curious too, is there a way to share this information with other folks? Like, I just think it's really rich data that people might be interested in knowing. I mean, you said yourself, you learned something, Peter, right? So I'm just curious.
Absolutely. Of course, we have it available on our website, but looking into other ways to share this and just make good use of it. I'm not sure how, but I can definitely look into figuring out a better way to do it.
No, it's great. I was just curious. So I'll share it as much as I can too. And I think we all will. So any other questions for Peter or suggestions? Seeing none. Great job. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Peter. Next, we'll go to committee and partner updates. Executive committee, the next meeting, it's open to anyone who wants to join us for the fun. It's November 30th at 11:30, right here in this building over in the MAPD conference room. So if anybody wants to join us, please feel free. It's an open meeting. KDOT. I think Mike's online, right?
I am online, correct. I don't know if anyone's there in person though.
Do you
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Mike, this is Nick. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to give just a Wichita update real fast. Tom was going to put out a press release saying that we're going to have portions of 135 closed this weekend, northbound on Sunday and southbound on Saturday between 29th and 235 for southbound and 29th and K96 on northbound. So everyone should be aware of that. And I'm sure Mike has lots of great information that he'd like to share as well. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there today. Did want to give a couple quick updates. So first of all, big thank you to everybody who participated in local consult this year. We had a great event in Wichita. We also had about, I think our final tally was 1,400 attendees statewide. So this was a very strong round of local consult for us this year, and I appreciate, again, everyone for being a part of it. Also wanted to give a quick update. A couple months ago, I think I mentioned we were going to study the canal route for its eventual replacement of those bridge structures. We will be pursuing a planning grant under the Bridge Investment Program. The NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity for that program, has not been released yet. We do expect it to be released later this year or early next year. So no news is good news. We're just waiting for that NOFO to hit the streets. We did engage with the HNTB Corporation to assist us with that application for the planning grant, and we're not just sitting idle right now. We're actually working on our stakeholder coordination plan as part of that application process. We are expecting a lot of community level stakeholder engagement as part of, again, as part of this grant application process. So you should see more activity in the next month or two with that. So with that, I will certainly stand for any questions.
Any questions for our friend Mike? All right, thank you. Thank you, great job. Next is Wichita Metro Division, KDOT. Tom's not here today, correct? Any other updates? Okay, and Chad says no one from Federal Highway Administration is here, just in case. Anyone online virtually? Seeing that, I know Chad has one more comment that he'd like to make during other business.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Sorry, I forgot one of the items. Our Marquee new staff has developed a schedule for the next year, 2024. As the year is getting closer, Marquee is going to share this with TAC and then for your approval next month. But Marquee.
Hi, I'm Marquee Jonas, Administrative Assistant. We have developed our 2024 meeting schedules. So while all of these schedules are included in the agenda packet, only the TAC and TPB schedules will need to be formally approved. All of the meetings, they all follow the frequency pattern other than the TAC meeting in May of 2024, which has been moved a week earlier due to Memorial Day. I think that's all the information I have for you. This will be formally brought to you for formal approval at the next meeting on December 12th.
Excellent. Any questions for Marquee? Thank you. Great job. Appreciate it very much. Next meeting, as she mentioned, will be December 12th. I know you'll be anticipating it greatly. Can't wait to see you all again. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed say bye. See you next month.